Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive?
Let's do it.
All right, so today we're tackling covert narcissism. We're diving into Covert Narcissism by Louisa Cox. And, this isn't just another dry psychology book.
Right.
Cox has actually lived through this.
Yeah, she spent a decade in relationships with covert narcissists.
A decade.
Yeah, so she's writing from a place of really deep personal experience, which I think is what makes this deep dive so valuable.
Oh, absolutely.
It's one thing to read those clinical descriptions, but she brings you right into those situations, those relationships, and shows you how these dynamics actually play out.
Yeah, you really get a sense of what it feels like to be in that situation. And that's what she wants, right?
Yeah.
To equip you with the knowledge to actually recognize it if it shows up in your own life.
Exactly, and not just recognize it, but then be able to deal with it.
Because it's not always easy to spot.
No, it really isn't. That's what makes covert narcissism so tricky. It's not like the loud in-your-face kind of narcissism.
Right.
It's subtle. It's insidious, like you might feel like something's off. But it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is.
Yeah, she even uses that phrase Jekyll and Hyde. Like, they can be so charming and charismatic on the surface,
Yeah.
but then behind closed doors, it's a totally different story. Have you ever encountered someone like that? Where
All the time.
they seem great in public, but then there's this other side.
Yeah, that's one of the hallmarks of covert narcissism. They might not fit that stereotype, that loud and proud narcissist. But they find these really subtle ways to assert their superiority, right? And it often comes from this place of deep insecurity.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's less about them saying, outright insults, and more like backhand compliments, those little digs,
Yeah.
and just this constant feeling of being, slightly off balance.
Yes. And that's how they get to you, It's not always about what they explicitly say. It's how they make you feel. You start to question your own perceptions, your judgment.
Am I crazy?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, so how does this actually play out, in a real conversation?
Yeah.
Because Cox gives these, really specific examples of covert narcissists speak. And it's kind of scary how recognizable some of them are.
It's true, yeah. They can be so subtle, but they're incredibly effective at manipulating you.
Totally.
One of the big ones that Cox talks about is repetition. Bringing up those past issues over and over again,
Yeah.
even if you thought they were resolved. And it's never about genuinely wanting to understand or work through things, right?
It's like they wear you down with it. And you start to question your own memory. Wait, maybe they're right. Maybe we did already talk about this.
Exactly. And another common one is playing the victim.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Huge.
Cox talks about how there's always a reason for their behavior,
Yeah.
Some past trauma or hardship that they bring up,
Right.
and suddenly you're the one comforting them.
Exactly. Shifting the focus away from their actions, right?
Yeah.
Making you feel sorry for them.
Wait a minute, how did this turn around on me?
Exactly. It's all about control.
It's wild. She even gives this example of having to explain what flirting is to a partner. Pretending not to understand basic social cues. It's just come on.
Yeah. It can feel so calculated.
It does.
And often it is.
Yeah.
And this is where that term gaslighting comes in.
Right.
Because they're feigning this ignorance and it makes you doubt your own judgment.
Totally.
You're like, maybe I am overreacting.
Yeah, am I being too sensitive?
Exactly.
Ugh, it's so frustrating.
It is.
Those conversations that go nowhere, you're just left feeling drained, wondering, what was the point of that?
That exhaustion is a sign. It's a red flag.
Yeah.
Those interactions are designed to make you feel that way.
Wow.
And unfortunately, as Cox points out, covert narcissists, they often target people who are highly empathetic.
That's heartbreaking.
It is.
Because it's that empathy, that willingness to see the good in them, that's what they use against you.
Exactly.
It's tough. It's scary to think about the long-term impact, you don't just walk away from this kind of manipulation and feel fine.
Right. It takes a toll.
It does.
And Cox really gets into that in the book, the psychological effects of being in this type of relationship. She talks about self-doubt, crippling self-doubt.
Yeah.
Where you start to question your judgment in all these different areas of life, not just the relationship.
It's it bleeds into everything.
Exactly. And then you have that thing where you start making excuses for them,
Oh, absolutely.
minimizing their actions, even to other people.
It's their version of reality starts to become your own.
Exactly. It's like you're constantly walking on eggshells, right?
Yes.
Afraid to set them off, always kind of bracing yourself for that next manipulative tactic.
Exhausting.
It's so draining.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about covert narcissism that's so insidious. It chips away at your sense of self.
Totally.
Yeah.
So how do you break free? How do you get your power back?
Well, Cox is a huge proponent of setting boundaries. And I don't just mean like saying no once and hoping for the best. It's got to be more than that. It's about like really clear lines in the sand. This is what I will accept. This is what I won't. And sticking to them.
No matter what.
No matter how much they push back, no matter how much they try to manipulate.
And that's where it becomes really empowering, right? It's like you're taking back control.
Absolutely. You're acknowledging your worth and refusing to let anyone, narcissist or not, diminish that.
Yeah.
This has been a lot, but I think if there's one thing to take away from this deep dive, it's that understanding covert narcissism, it's not just about, navigating a certain type of romantic relationship.
Totally.
It's about recognizing manipulation wherever it shows up.
Absolutely.
In any relationship, in any area of life. And having that awareness can be so empowering.
100%.
Well, that about wraps up our look at covert narcissism. Big thanks to Louisa Cox for her incredible book. We hope this deep dive has given you some things to think about, maybe some tools to navigate your own relationships. Until next time.